Let's talk about that moment. You're at a party, maybe a friend's anniversary or a neighborhood cookout. A familiar face with a warm smile starts walking towards you, and a jolt of ice-cold panic shoots through your stomach. You know them. You've met them before. But their name? It's gone. Vanished into thin air. Your mind, which once held encyclopedias of information, now feels like a blank slate. So you do the dance. You say, "Hey, so good to see you," hoping they won't notice you avoided their name. You call them buddy or chief, and it feels fake, disingenuous, and it chips away at your confidence. If that feeling is familiar to you, I want you to know you are not alone. In fact, a study shows that nearly 85% of middle-aged and older adults report regularly forgetting names. It is a deeply shared human experience, not a personal failure. And if you've ever told yourself, well, this is just part of getting older, I'm here today to respectfully challenge that idea. We're going to talk about a simple technique called the first letter method, but more importantly, we're going to place it inside a complete, practical system for not just remembering names, but for reclaiming your confidence in any social situation. Now, you've probably seen a lot of videos promising a magic trick to remember every name every time. This isn't one of them. The truth is, that kind of promise often feels a bit like clickbait, and it doesn't respect your intelligence. The first letter method has its limits, and we're going to be honest about them today. But, and this is the crucial part, it can be an incredibly useful first step in a larger, more effective strategy that is grounded in how our brains actually work. This isn't about miracle cures. It's about practical tools. Over the next few minutes, we're going to embark on a 7-step journey together. We'll start by tackling the fear itself, because that anxiety is often a bigger part of the problem than your memory. We will directly address the myth of normal aging with information from authoritative sources like the Alzheimer's Association, because understanding the truth is the first step toward empowerment. Then, we will break down the first letter method and immediately show you how to supercharge it with a much more powerful technique. And you'll definitely want to stick around for the last few steps, where we'll cover a graceful, word-for-word script you can use when you do forget a name, and we'll talk about the real, holistic ways to support your brain health for the long haul, moving beyond just simple memory tricks. My goal today is to give you a complete toolkit, one that leaves you feeling prepared, confident, and in control the next time you walk into a crowded room. And a quick but important reminder, I am not a doctor, and this video is for informational purposes only. The goal here is to share helpful strategies and credible information to support your well-being. If you have serious concerns about your memory, please consult with your personal physician or a qualified healthcare professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific health needs. All right, let's begin with the very foundation of this issue, the part we so often ignore. We need to acknowledge the fear and normalize the experience. Imagine that anniversary party again. As that person approaches, what's really happening in your brain? It isn't just a search for a name. A cascade of fear-based questions floods your mind. Will I look foolish? Will they think I'm rude? Do they think I'm losing my mind? Am I losing my mind? This isn't just a memory problem. It's a social anxiety problem. Psychology today has explored this extensively. When we feel that social stress, our bodies release cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol in high-pressure moments can actively interfere with the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for forming new memories. It creates a vicious, self-fulfilling prophecy. You're afraid you'll forget the name. That fear makes it harder to remember the name, which then validates your fear. I remember talking to a gentleman, a retired engineer named Frank, a brilliant man who could build a radio from spare parts. He started declining invitations to his wife's book club. He told her he just wasn't interested in the books, but he later confessed to me that the real reason was his terror of forgetting the names of the other members' husbands. He felt the expectation to know them, and the thought of that blank moment was so mortifying that avoidance felt like the only option. The first and most crucial action step is simply to give yourself permission to feel that anxiety without judging it. When that jolt of panic hits, just mentally say to yourself, "Ah, there's that feeling again. That's the 'I'm worried about forgetting a name' feeling. It's just a feeling. It's not a fact." By simply labeling it, you create a small bit of distance between you and the emotion. You're no longer consumed by it. You are observing it. Now, as for red flags, it's important to distinguish this from more serious concerns. It's one thing to have a name on the tip of your tongue. It's another thing entirely if you are forgetting the names of your own children or getting lost in familiar places. Those are signs that absolutely warrant a conversation with your doctor. But the fear of forgetting an acquaintance's name at a party, that is part of the human condition. That feeling of fear is often fueled by a powerful and pervasive myth, which brings us to our second point. We must debunk the idea that significant memory loss is a normal part of aging. It's so easy to do. We misplace our keys, we forget a name, and we sigh and say, "Well, I guess this is what happens when you get to be 68. We say it as a joke, but underneath, there's a real current of resignation. But here is what the Alzheimer's Association wants you to know, and it's critically important. Dementia is a disease. It is not a standard feature of getting older. Your risk may increase with age, but it is not an inevitable destination. Think of it this way. The risk of heart disease also increases with age, but we don't just throw up our hands and exclude it. Perhaps you've had the painful experience of watching a loved one, a parent or a spouse, go through dementia. My own grandfather struggled profoundly in his later years, and I saw how that experience cast a long, fearful shadow over my father. Every time you forgot a word, you could see a flicker of that deep-seated worry in his eyes. It's completely understandable to have that fear if you've witnessed it up close, but the most empowering action step you can take is to consciously separate the disease from the normal, occasional memory lapses we all have. The real red flags for a condition like Alzheimer's, as outlined by the National Institute on Aging, are things like memory loss that disrupts daily life, difficulty planning or solving problems, trouble completing familiar tasks at home or at work, or confusion with time or place. Forgetting where you parked your car is one thing. Forgetting how to operate the car is another. So let's make a pact to stop saying it's just my age. Instead, let's reframe it. A memory lapse is a signal to be more mindful, to get more sleep, or maybe to use a better strategy. It's a call to action, not a reason for surrender. So, with that fear addressed and that myth busted, let's finally talk about the technique in this video's title. Our third step is to introduce the first letter method, but with a crucial caveat. You're at the party. A woman with striking, bright blue eyes walks up and is introduced as Barbara. The first letter method is a type of mnemonic, which is just a fancy word for a memory device. The idea is to create a quick, simple anchor. You take the first letter of the name, B, for Barbara, and link it to an observable feature. In your mind, you say, Barbara, bright blue eyes, B, or maybe you meet a tall gentleman named Tom. Tom is tall. TTD. It's simple, it's fast, and it gives your brain something to grab onto in that initial moment. It's better than doing nothing. However, we have to be intellectually honest here, and this is what most videos on this topic get wrong. A study published in the journal Memory, which specifically looked at the first letter mnemonic, found that while it can be useful for remembering the order of a list of items you already know, like using "every good boy deserves fudge" to remember the notes on a musical staff, it is often ineffective for recalling the items themselves unless you are already familiar with them. The letter B doesn't have a strong inherent connection to the name Barbara. It's an abstract link, so the action step here is to try it, but to view it as the hook, not the entire fishing line. When you meet David, think David has a dimple. When you meet Pat, think Pat has a purple tie. Use it as a momentary placeholder. It's a bridge to get you to the next, much more powerful step. If you find you can't even hold that simple letter and feature in your mind for a few seconds, it might just be a sign of distraction. But if it's a persistent issue, it could point to attention challenges that are worth discussing with a professional. But as we've said, this first letter is just the hook. To really reel that name in and keep it, we need to add something far more powerful. That brings us to step 4, layering on more effective association techniques. Our brains are not designed to remember abstract data like letters and names very well. What are they designed for? They are designed to remember images, stories, emotions, and things that are surprising or even ridiculous. This is where the real magic happens. So we're back with Barbara and her bright blue eyes. The BBB connection is weak. Now let's create a mini-movie in our minds. The name is Barbara. What does that sound like? Barber. Instantly, you can create a vivid, absurd image. Picture Barbara with her bright blue eyes, sitting in an old-fashioned barber's chair, getting her hair cut by a singing barber who is using giant scissors. Can you see it? Can you hear the snipping and the silly song? That image is bizarre. It's visual and it's emotional. Your brain will hold on to that story far more tightly than it will hold on to the letter B. The action step here is to give yourself permission to be creative and even childish in your own mind. When you meet a Bill, don't just think B. Picture him buried under a huge stack of dollar bills. When you meet a Sharon, picture her sharing a giant ice cream cone with a friendly lion. The more unusual and sensory the image, the more neural pathways you create to that memory. The real power of this lies in the fact that you are translating boring data, a name, into the brain's preferred language, pictures and stories. You're not fighting your brain's nature. You're working with it. All right, let's just take a quick pause. We're more than halfway through our strategy, and I want to make sure this is all sinking in. We started by acknowledging that the fear of forgetting is real and normal. Then we busted the myth that significant memory loss is just part of aging, which frees us to be proactive. We then introduced the first letter method as a simple initial hook, but we were honest about its limitations. And just now, we've unlocked the real secret sauce, layering that hook with rich, visual, and even absurd associations to make the memory truly stick. This is a complete system, and you're doing a fantastic job of following along. If you're finding this guide helpful and this approach respectful of your intelligence, I would be so grateful if you took just a moment to tap that like button below this video. It's a small click for you, but it makes a huge difference in helping this information reach more people just like you who might be struggling with this. Thank you so much for that. Now, creating these mental pictures requires a critical ingredient. You can't create an image of someone, and you can't use a first-letter hook if you never actually heard their name in the first place. And that brings us to the very foundation of this entire process. Our fifth step, the importance of being present through mindfulness. Think about the last time you were introduced to someone. Were you truly listening, or was your mind already racing ahead, thinking about what you were going to say next? Were you worried about your handshake being too firm or too weak? Were you distracted by the music or another conversation nearby? Most of the time, when we forget a name, the truth is we never actually got it. The name entered our ears, but our brain, being preoccupied with social anxiety and future planning, never encoded it. It's like trying to save a document on a computer without ever clicking the save button. I think we can all relate to the experience of driving a familiar route, maybe home from the grocery store, and arriving at your destination with absolutely no memory of the last few miles. Your hands and feet were doing the work, but your mind was elsewhere. That's autopilot. We go into a similar social autopilot during introductions. The single most effective action you can take to combat this is to make a conscious, deliberate decision to listen. For the 3 seconds that someone is telling you their name, make it the most important thing in your universe. A fantastic way to force this focus is to immediately use their name in your response. When he says, "Hi, I'm Robert," you look him in the eye, smile, and say, "It's a real pleasure to meet you, Robert." This does 2 things. First, it forces you to hear it and process it. Second, it makes the other person feel seen and respected. It's a win-win. If you consistently find yourself unable to focus in conversations, it might be a sign of high stress or other underlying issues, and that's a valid thing to bring up with your doctor. But for most of us, the simple act of choosing to be present is a game changer. But let's be realistic. Even with the best intentions, the best focus, and the most creative mental images, a name will occasionally slip through the cracks. Life is messy, parties are loud, and sometimes our brains just don't cooperate. The real test of social confidence isn't having a perfect memory. It's how you gracefully handle those imperfect moments. That's why our 6th step is to have an actionable exit strategy. The panic of forgetting a name is amplified when we don't know what to do about it. We stumble, we use those awkward placeholders like mate or pal, and the whole interaction feels strained. Having a pre-planned script in your back pocket eliminates that panic. It gives you a tool to fix the problem directly and confidently. I remember watching my aunt, a woman of incredible social grace, handle this beautifully. She was deep in conversation with a woman at a family wedding. She paused, touched the woman's arm gently, and said with a warm, slightly chagrined smile, "You know, I've enjoyed this chat so much that I've completely forgotten to properly lock your name away in my head. Would you be so kind as to tell me again?" The other woman didn't look offended, or a more direct and honest approach. "I'm making a real effort to get better at remembering names, and I seem to have failed with yours. Could you help me out?" The key here is to be honest, humble, and to frame it as your failing, not their lack of memorability. It turns a moment of potential embarrassment into a moment of genuine human connection. You're not being weak, you're being real. These techniques we've discussed, managing the fear, using the hook and image, being present, and having an exit strategy, form a powerful toolkit for any social situation. But true, long-term cognitive health isn't just about clever tricks for a party. It's about building a healthier, more resilient brain for life. That brings us to our final and perhaps most important point 7, empowering yourself with proactive, holistic brain health tips. You've surely seen the ads online or in magazines for brain training games, promising to make you sharper with just a few minutes a day. And it's so tempting to believe that a simple app on your phone is the answer. But we need to be very clear-eyed about this. AARP's own Global Council on Brain Health conducted a thorough review and stated that the evidence for many of these commercial brain training games improving our day-to-day cognitive function is, and I quote, "weak to non-existent." In 2016, the makers of one of the most popular games, Lumosity, were even fined $2 million by the Federal Trade Commission for making unfounded claims about its ability to protect against memory decline. The real, science-backed path to a sharper mind is less about playing a repetitive game and more about how you live your life. The Mayo Clinic and other leading institutions consistently point to the same pillars of brain health. First is physical exercise. Getting your heart rate up pumps more oxygen-rich blood to the brain. You don't need to run a marathon. A brisk 30-minute walk most days of the week is transformative. Second is a brain-healthy diet, like the Mediterranean diet, rich in fruits, vegetables, fish, and healthy fats like olive oil. Third, and this is what you're doing by going to the party in the first place, is staying socially engaged. Meaningful conversation challenges your brain in ways no computer game can. And finally, mental stimulation. But not just games. This means learning something new. Take a class, learn to play pickleball, try a new language, or read books on a subject you know nothing about. Novelty and challenge are what build a stronger brain. The action step here is to pick one thing. Just one. Maybe it's deciding to walk for 15 minutes every morning or adding a salad to your lunch. These lifestyle choices are the foundation upon which all these other memory techniques are built. They are what will truly serve you for decades to come. So as we bring all of this together, let's look at the incredible system you now have. You're no longer walking into a party armed with nothing but hope. You have a plan. You know how to recognize the feeling of anxiety and not let it derail you. You've thrown out the disempowering myth that you're just getting old and embraced the truth that you can be proactive about your brain health. When you meet someone new, you have a two-step process. The simple first-letter hook to catch the name, followed by a rich, creative mental image to lock it in. You're committed to the simple act of being present, of truly listening, and in your back pocket, you have a graceful, confident script for those moments when a name does slip away, turning a potential failure into a point of connection. Finally, you understand that all of this is supported by the real work of living a brain-healthy lifestyle. This isn't a collection of random tips. It's a strategy for confidence. It's a way to take back control from the fear of forgetting and to more fully enjoy the social connections that make life so rich and meaningful. Now, I would love to hear from you. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the psychology of fear to the science of memory. Which of these 7 steps was the biggest aha moment for you? Was it the idea of creating silly mental movies, the permission to have an exit strategy, or the truth about brain games? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Your insights not only help me, but they create a community of support for everyone watching. And if you enjoyed this deep dive and appreciate a respectful, in-depth approach to topics that matter to us, please be sure to hit subscribe and ring that little notification bell. That way, you won't miss out on our future videos designed to help you live a healthier, more empowered life. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Be well, stay empowered, and I'll see you in the next video.